Now we are going to discuss Ansible variables. If you have used any programming or scripting language, you must have come across variables. If not, don't worry, we will define it for you now. An Ansible variable is a temporary placeholder for a piece of data in the memory of the computer. While Ansible as an automation tool exists to make it easier to make things repeatable, all of your systems are likely not exactly alike. On some systems within your cluster, you may want to set some behavior or configuration that is slightly different from others. Also, some of the observed behavior or state of remote systems may influence how you configure those systems. For instance, you might need to find out the IP address of a system and even use it as a configuration value on another system. You might have some templates for configuration files that are mostly the same, but slightly different based on those variables. Variables in Ansible are how we deal with these differences amongst different systems. Most of the variable naming conventions which are applicable to other programming languages remain consistent in Ansible, especially the conventions followed by the Python platform. There are certain rules for writing variable names, like you cannot use hyphen in a variable name. The variable name can be alphanumeric, but it should start with alphabet, not with number. Variable names cannot contain spaces, and certain other special characters are also prohibited, like ampersand or percentage. In our demos, we are not going to use any complex names for our variables. We will keep things simple and use either a single word or, in some cases, double words separated by an underscore. Now let us examine the variable naming conventions applicable to Ansible variables. Let's switch to our commands prompt. Here, if we examine the output from our setup module, it provides us with all the facts about our nodes. We can see this data is in JSON format. Furthermore, it is represented to us in the shape of key and value pairs, similar to a dictionary object. Here, if we look at the keys, these keys are following the naming conventions applicable to Ansible variables. For instance, here is a key called Ansible_LSB. So here it is not using any hyphens, rather it is using underscores to separate out the two words. Similarly, it should not contain any other special character or space. But if you examine this value on the right side, off, open bracket, fixed, close bracket, it has a space in it, and that is just okay because it is not a variable name. The variable name is mainly used to write the playbook optimally. When we use variables, it avoids us having to hard-code any of the values in the playbook code. For example, if we are writing a WordPress installation playbook and we want to specify that we want to run our WordPress instance to run on a different port other than port 80, then rather than hard-coding the port number, we can just create the variable to hold the value of the port. Furthermore, say we need to use this port number in multiple places in our playbook, for the web server, for the firewall, and for some other configuration changes. Rather than repeating the hard-coded value all over the place, we can just use the variable instead. Now in the future, if we want to make a change to the port number value, we do not need to scan the whole playbook and make numerous changes. We just change the value of the variable and we are all set. Variables can be grouped together in a file, say a configuration file. So where can we define our variables? We can define our variables in the inventory file, which by default is located at /etc/ansible/hosts, as we saw in previous sessions. We can also use them in playbooks. In variable configuration files, so basically we can define our variables in a separate file and include it in our playbooks. At runtime, Ansible will be able to pre-process the variable files and include the information contained in them. Roles are the best way to organize your playbooks. Roles are ways of automatically loading certain variables, files, tasks, etc. based on a known file structure. Grouping content by roles also allows easy sharing of roles with other users. We can use variables in roles as well. Now let's quickly inspect some Ansible variables. Let's switch to our terminal window and execute view/etc/ansible/host, which will display our inventory file. Here, if you recall, we added an entry for 2 nodes. And for each of the nodes, we assigned a custom username. This entry is called Ansible_user. And we assigned a value of Ubuntu to this variable. Do you know what this entry is? Yes, it is a variable called Ansible user, a variable which we used while defining our nodes. This is the one place where we have already used variables. Now let's move the discussion forward to another important Ansible construct called sections. The Ansible sections are the sections which we need to write in an Ansible playbook. These sections are target section, variable section, task section, handler section and notify, loops, conditionals, until. All these are not mandatory sections, only a few of them are mandatory. For example, all playbooks will have at least one task section, so when we run playbook, it actually does something. We will go through the entire list of Ansible sections in the next module, but for now, let's quickly talk about the target, variable and task sections. So the target section is the first structural component of Ansible playbook, where we specify the host group. The host group, as we already explained, is a collection of target hosts on which we will be executing the task. Next section is the variable section, where we can write the list of all the variables used in the playbook. And then we have the task section, where we write the list of all the tasks which our playbook should perform.